Hey guys, how you doing? If you've been shooting photos for a while, then probably somebody at some point came up to you and said, hey, you should shoot in RAW, not in JPEG, because it's so much better. And you might be wondering, okay, fine, why is it better? Today, we're going to talk about this. Why is a JPEG file not as good as a RAW file? And we're going to look at how you can salvage an overexposed picture because you shot in RAW. First of all, let's imagine something together. Let's say you are an artist and you want to assemble a small mosaic. So you go to the art store and you buy these 64 pieces and you decide my mosaic is only going to be around 6 pieces. Now you can take these pieces out of the mosaic, out of the set that you bought, and you put them here and you assemble them, and here's your mosaic that you can take to an exhibition, you can show it to your audience. This is what you intended, right? This is the intent of your piece of art. Now let's say what you also do is you decide, hey, you know what, all these other pieces, screw those pieces, I'm going to throw them in the trash bin, and now they're gone. Now all you have left is these 6 pieces. If you ever want to change that mosaic around, you have very limited options because you cannot change anything more. You've thrown out all the other pieces, only those 6 is what you're left with. This is what happens if you shoot in RAW and then compress to JPEG. This is your JPEG file. It's missing all the other pieces, but it has everything you want to show your audience. The RAW file would be more like this, where all the information is available and you have a lot more possibilities to work with the file. Let's look at these files. Here is the same picture, and you can see it's overexposed. It's first of all, here we have a RAW file that came out of the camera. It's an EOS 6D and it's 30 megabytes. It is a really large file. Here's a JPEG that essentially looks the same because I didn't retouch this at all and I immediately exported it to a JPEG. I downscaled it a little and it's 400 kilobytes. So we have 400 kilobytes here, 30 megabytes there. They look the same, so why is this better? Because here we can do a lot more retouching. When the JPEG file was compressed, it threw out all of the additional information that immediately you cannot see as a viewer, but that is there and allows you to retouch the picture. So in the JPEG file, we just see the picture as, you know, it should be seen. It just contains all the information that is visible to the human eye and everything else is stripped out. But we see what's visible to the human eye is not very pleasing. First of all, this image is sort of yellowish. That's not very nice. And second of all, it's way too bright. Everything back here is just blown out. It's just a white flat surface. Here, this is all white and blown out. And of course, on her face, which is most important, we have these blown out parts here. Everything is just flat and white, and we have flat and white on her arm and on his shirt. We want to lower this. We want to lower the exposure so some of this comes back. If we do this with the JPEG file, then we see that all that happens is it gets darker, but the detail doesn't come back. It's not like any of this, like it gets darker, but it doesn't really get more textured or anything like that. Now let's try the same thing in the CR2 file, which is the RAW file that came out of the camera. If I lower the exposure here, look at her forehead, you can see how the detail on her forehead is coming back. All of a sudden, her face is much more recognizable and much more visible to the human eye, right? The same thing happened back here, before and after, you see. There's much more color information and there's more detail that has come back that we can use to do further improvements to the image. So now this image is ready for retouching. So why don't we take a couple of minutes and retouch this image? So first of all, I lowered this so her face looks better, but secondly, I think it's too yellow, which is another thing, you know. Like if I go to white balance and I select spot, I can tell this software, okay, this piece of wall back here, that's supposed to be a shade of gray, anywhere between black and white, on the spectrum between pure black and pure white, as in gray. This is what should be gray, and the camera will, and the software will realize this and then just adjust the rest of the colors to be in the right balance. So her face is now a little bit more red, but the overall color is much more natural. Let's just nudge it just a little bit towards yellow, so we have that. That's another thing that gets lost in the JPEG file. If you try to do image correction, color correction, you will have some success, but it's not going to be as good because a lot of the color information has been lost, and in this case we can do it. Now I think she should have a little bit more color on her face. It looks a little bit pale right now. So we're going to draw a mask here over her hair as well, because why not? Let's just take the face and I'm going to blur a little bit less. And here in this color zones tool, we can go pick the saturation for the mask that we just checked, and we say all the yellow parts should have more saturation. And you can see now there's more color on her face. Another thing that we can do is we can blur it a little. If I use my low pass bloom preset, for which I can record a different video at some point, we'll see that the whole picture gets a little bit smoother, a little bit softer. We can go to the equalizer. We can add some local contrast here in the coarse parts here as well. And then, whoops, it slipped back. There we go. And if we go to the finer parts and we raise this, then her eye becomes a little bit more sharp. So that is very nice. And now the last thing, I think we want overall a little bit more contrast to this picture. Her face is already pretty bright. Perhaps I should even darken that a little. So I go to color balance. You can do this with a curve as well. So I'm darkening the highlights a little bit more. There we go. And I'm darkening the darker parts even more, because now you can see this, now this image pops more. There's a greater dynamic range between the dark parts and the bright parts. A little bit too much perhaps. Let's make it a little bit brighter. As you can see, we cannot salvage everything on the face, right? Like some parts, like this little area here, this little area, they're just blown out. So even in the raw file, not all the information is there. But we were able to bring back a whole lot. Last thing we can do is just crop this image 16 by 9, a nice film type of format. Go here. It's like a modern TV show or a movie. They're often in 16 by 9. There we go. So we crop it like this, and our image is done. Now, if we look at the comparison again, right? This is our original image. This is how it came out of the camera. Totally overexposed, bad color tint. This is what you can do with it. This looks much nicer, right? You could even add a vignette at the end. There. How about that? That's a very nice picture, and that is possible because if you shoot in RAW, all the information to bring back a lot of lost detail is still there. And that doesn't happen if you shoot in JPEG, because your camera automatically, immediately will compress the image and will spit out a JPEG. That looks fine, but hopefully looks fine, but you cannot do much in post-processing. Thank you. I hope this helps you a little bit improve your photography, and we will talk soon. Bye.